So I've created 4 test setups using the Panasonic GH5 versus the DJI Pocket 3. The first setup will be comparing the field of view. So I'm going to mount the DJI Pocket 3 on top of the GH5. I've got the 12 to 35mm lens on the GH5. At 12mm I feel that the field of view is very similar, so you'll be like a direct comparison there. I'll be testing the different inbuilt mics between the GH5 and the Pocket 3's inbuilt mic, just so we can get an idea what they sound like. The second setup, I'll zoom in on the GH5 to get a tighter headshot, so it'll be similar to this shot here, and I'll mount the Pocket 3 on top so you can see the difference in field of view. You can't zoom in, or you can, but you can't, there's no physical zoom on the Pocket 3, it's a digital zoom, so I don't really like those. We'll be testing the Tentacle Sync Trackie lav mic, which you're hearing now, versus the Pocket 3's Mic 2, the large one. The third setup, I'll mount the Pocket 3 on a tripod, on a light stand. Because it's so light, it can be mounted on a light stand and put in more places where a large camera can't. And the fourth test will be a tabletop top-down shot. So this is kind of the product review shot, so you'll be able to see my hands and look at what I'm discussing with the camera, and you'll be able to get a close-up view of those things. So I'll do the disclaimer now. I purchased the DJI Creator Combo. I bought it with my own money. I paid this much. So all the opinions are my own, not sponsored by anyone. 2 camera setup, so I've got the Pocket Osmo 3 on top and the Lumix underneath. I'm currently not wearing any mics at all, so we'll see how it looks like. So this is with the old SAD lamp, the CFL one, and the new SAD lamp, the LED one, a light on the ceiling and light on beside me. Okay, so we have the GH5 underneath. That's about 25mm in a 12 to 35mm lens, so it's about halfway through the zoom range. And above the camera, mounted on top, is the Pocket 3. I'll flick between the views so you can see the difference. That's shooting in auto settings, in DLOG, 10-bit. I'm recording the audio via 2 means. I've got a Trackie, Tentacle Sync Trackie pocket recorder with a lav mic on my chest, and I've also got the DJI Mic 2, the large one, clipped above it. So the recording for the Trackie is being saved locally, and the recording for the DJI is being sent over to the camera. So I'll flick between the sources and I'll put them up in the corner here so you can see which source is when I'm speaking. I have the camera set back as far as I can so you'll be able to see the difference in the field of view. I've zoomed in a little bit to try and get a little bit of depth of field. There's not a huge amount of space behind me, probably 80 centimeters between me and the back wall. I'm lit. I've got the house lights on. Oh, let me turn this one on. House lights. I've got 2 lights. They're not really for the purpose. They're both SAD lights. I just had them, so I'm using them as the light source. Outside the window, it's quite dark now. It's coming up on 4 o'clock in the winter, so there's a bit of light, but not much coming through the window. So it's mainly coming through the man-made sources. Okay, so this is setup 2. The first camera is still in the GH5 is still in its original position. I've moved the Pocket 3 onto a light stand and brought it a lot closer. So it's now focusing, it's still a wide shot, but it's now focusing on me as a second angle. This would be useful to show what's on the table so you can see what's in front of me. One of the main benefits of the Pocket 3 is that you can bring up the app and see what the camera is seeing. So I can now see myself. Once it reconnects, I can. So I can now see myself and see how it is framed. So it shows the width of the board. I can look at the camera, I can look at that one. And it's quite a nice framing. This enables a 2-camera setup, so I can switch between the two. I'm still running the 2 audio sources, so I have effectively a backup. So you can see, I can't see what it sees now, and it shows me, and I can see what the framings are. I'm shooting this in DLOG and just standard because I don't have the DLOG package on the GH5. It was one of the last cameras that Panasonic brought out before they included a log by default. So the GH5 is probably 5-6 years old now. The newer ones have a log profile by default, but this one doesn't, or it doesn't without paying for it, which I haven't done. So I'm going to probably colour match the footage from the Pocket 3 to match the GH5 to see how it compares. I quite like the image out of the GH5, so I think it's a nice way to match it that way. The Pocket 3 hopefully will have the flexibility. So far up to this point, I've left this semi-ungraded. I've done a transition from the log footage up to Rec 709, so up to the standard colours, but I haven't graded it to match, so you'll be able to see that. I'll put in the corner here when that changes, so I'm going to change that now and try my best to grade it to match the two if needed. So this now the DJI is mounted in a top-down configuration. It's on a tabletop tripod, which I'll cover in a future video. I bought the Creator Combo, so I'm going to go through the other items that came in the kit just as a review. I've still got my phone acting as a monitor, which is just out of frame, so I can see what the camera sees. So I took this camera away abroad for testing, and I'll cover those testings in real world examples after this in studio test. This case which holds the camera I found very useful. It held it securely when I put it in pockets. I had a jacket pocket which was large enough to hold the camera. I didn't use or haven't used the tabletop tripod that comes in the kit. It's just a 1/4-20 on the bottom, and it's pretty much all plastic construction. It feels robust enough, particularly for the tiny little camera, but I have a proper metal tripod which I'll cover in a future video, which I use most of the time. The Pocket 3 comes with a battery adapter or battery add-on that charges it. At the bottom of that add-on is a 1/4-20. So the additional 1/4-20 add-on section at the bottom I think is a bit redundant, because if I'm going to use a bit to turn it into a 1/4-20, I might as well use the battery and have that functionality as well. Also in the thing is a USB-C to C cable, which is always good to have, and obviously the mic, but I'm wearing the mic so it's not there, and the wind protection for it. I haven't used this case for anything other than holding the accessories in the studio. I think it's good for that purpose, but I don't think it's good for field work because it's dedicated for those things, but if you're not going to use all the things, you don't need the case. I've now reviewed the footage of the tests, and I'm very pleased with how it's turned out. They're a lot closer than I thought they were going to be. The Pocket 3 is very similar in both video quality and colour and colour science to the GH5 using the default LUT from DJI. I think quite confidently that the Pocket 3 can be used as a second camera or a B camera to a larger camera like a GH5. I don't think it's quite the same level yet. I think I still prefer the image out of the GH5. I think it's still a little better, but it is a bigger camera and an interchangeable lens, so it still has those advantages. I took the Pocket 3 away to Portugal to review its vlogging capabilities. The camera itself is lightweight enough to be mounted onto a aluminium tube tripod extender. So it's a little tripod which I'll review in a future video. And that enabled me to get some vlogging shots or do some vlogging testing at least. I took the wide angle filter which I use for many of the vlogging shots because I think that provided a better field of view. One thing of note was that I didn't take an ND with me for the Pocket 3, so it meant that some of the shots, or a lot of the shots, had very high shutter speeds because it was very bright in Portugal compared to the UK at least. I thought the performance of the footage in the clip you're about to see was excellent. It did a very good job of tracking my face using the face tracking feature, even though it lost me a couple of times. Its stabilisation of the 3-axis gimbal was brilliant considering the terrain I was going over. I was climbing up loose stone and I was more watching my feet than I was watching the camera. So I was relying on the camera to remain level and to keep me in frame while I focused on climbing. So it did that very well. I used the DJI Mic during the test and the sound came out quite clear. I think I use the wind protection for any future tests outside because I didn't use it in the test, and some of the other clips I had were a little wind noise because you could hear the wind blowing on it. But apart from that, I think it did very well. Fabulous view. We've driven up all the way from Portimao. Sun's behind. Let's climb up to the highest point. If it's too difficult, I will stop. Can I get up to the top? The next section is very rocky. So I don't know if I'm going to make that bit without putting the camera down. You first?
Thank you.
And I think we're at the top. Yeah, there we go. And you've lost me. There I am. Show you the view. You can see all the way down to Portimao, where the river meets the sea. I have to see how far that is on Google Maps and put it on. It must be at least a few miles. Sun's behind me, so I can't film that way. While I'm up here, I'll show you what's up here. So we have a shop and a craft centre with individual traders. Both of them you can't film in, so I haven't done. And lots of radio and cell towers and radar stations dotted, as we are at the highest point for miles around. If I point the camera down, you'll see the wrong way down. See, it's not the easiest thing to climb up to the highest point. There aren't steps, it is a boulder climb up to the top. So not good for anyone with mobility problems. But you can drive and park in the car park. The viewpoints around the top are just as good. So it's well worth the visit up here. This camera doesn't do it justice. So overall, I'm very pleased with the camera. I found it met all the tasks I want to do. It achieved all of the shots I was aiming for. It's very similar in image quality to my Panasonic GH5, so I feel it's a very good B camera or second camera to it. I think the GH5 is still slightly better in terms of image quality, but it has got a larger sensor and interchangeable lenses and is a larger body overall. So it has those things for it, the Panasonic. But I feel that the two can work well as a combination. So I'm planning to incorporate it into my film kit and into my future video projects.